It's the truth. I've stepped away from the brand that I co-founded, the Prideful Goat. If you want to hear why and what this means for the future of the brand, then stick around. Before I get started, I do have to take a moment to thank the patrons. Everybody whose name is on the screen right now is supporting at the top 3 levels, but those are not the only ones that keep this program going. There are other patrons that are supporting at different levels, and if you want to find out how to support this channel, stick around till the end. So I was able to start my own brand of whiskey in conjunction with a distillery here in Texas. It started in December of 2019. At the time, I had just launched my podcast, and I had met the owner of Giant Texas Distillers, who turned out to be a pretty awesome guy. And through a fortuitous series of events that were totally unplanned and unexpected, it led to the formation of the brand. When I first started, my partner was handling most of the business arrangements and set up a really sweet arrangement with a wholesaler here in the state of Texas. And at the time, I didn't really know about wholesaler relationships, and I didn't know how awesome of an opportunity had been created. And when we first launched, we were experiencing a lot of success. And it was one of those types of situations where, you know, by the time we were launched, the podcast had grown, and I mistakenly believed my own press, if you're familiar with that term, right? So, you know, everyone's, you know, singing my praises, and I'm thinking, oh, wow, I've seen a lot of other brands not have this much success this quickly. This must be because me and my co-founder have such a strong, you know, connection with the whiskey enthusiast, and they want to support our brand. And so, you know, all of this time, energy, and effort that I've poured into, you know, this podcast and building a reputation is really starting to pay off. And, you know, that was probably a wrong assumption, as we're going to see here in a minute. So, but then after that, a decision was made without any input from me that the really sweet arrangement with the wholesaler that was resulting in all the sales was going to be brought to an abrupt end. And basically, we had a wholesaler that had a relationship with a very large retailer in the state, and that wholesaler was doing pass-through distribution for us, where we were basically only being charged for the logistics portion because they weren't doing any sales or inventory management for us, because everything they ordered just went straight through to the retailer. And that allowed the retailer to have a really large gross profit margin, and that made it one of their top priority products. So we got, you know, premium placement in their stores and all that stuff, and it helped us to become really, really successful very quickly. But when we switched to a more traditional wholesaler who was supposed to provide warehousing, logistics, and sales, and they were supposed to help us break into other retail chains and to get into independent stores, all of the sales basically stopped overnight. So as we started to realize that sales had dwindled and we're trying to put pressure on the new distributor, we decided, all right, well, let's just go outside of Texas, right? If we get distribution in another state, there's no doubt with all the success that we had when we launched in Texas that we're going to experience the same sort of success that we had there in these other states. So it was during this time that I really started to learn how the 3-tier system worked. And I very quickly learned that wholesalers talk a big game, but they really are just signing up as many brands as they can to see which ones will grow on their own, right? And I, at first, mistakenly believed that the issue was actually the wholesaler, right? That, you know, I go interstate and I go, hey, I've got this podcast and I have a following and people want my product, but they can't get it. If you'll take me on and put me in stores, I think you'll see, you know, that there's a demand for this product out there. One, I was kind of wrong. Two, the wholesalers would go, oh, absolutely, and we have all of the sales staff and everything that you need to really get deep market penetration in our state, and we're going to take real good care of you. And then, they would bring in some product that wouldn't really sell. And so I mistakenly thought maybe I just had the wrong wholesaler. And so there were several instances where I started looking around in the state and see if I could find another wholesaler. But very quickly I learned you're probably going to end up with the exact same result, right? And so I would call up the wholesaler and I'd say, hey, what's going on? And they always had the same story. They'd say, hey, no one really wants your products. We go out there in the market, we push it, and people just don't see value in it. And if you want your product to move in our state, then you need to help us to sell your whiskey. And I go, oh, okay, well, what do I need to do? And they go, oh, well, we need you to come to town, and we're going to take you around and give you the opportunity to present your product to different people. And that's gonna help us get the word out about the brand. And I'd go, oh, okay. And then I'd go and I'd get in the car with the salesperson that was supposed to represent my whiskey, and they'd take me to a store, and 100% of the time they would agree to bring in my whiskey. I had a 100% sales close ratio. And then I would find out that the fact was they hadn't really tried to sell my whiskey before I got there, right? And the way that would reveal itself to me was they would drive up to a store and they go, hey, this is a real important account. We need to be in this account. A lot of the whiskey enthusiasts that would be your ideal customer for your brand shop at the store. He does a great job with those types of customers. He takes care of them. So we really need to be in this account. And I go, okay, I'm trying to get in every account, but this one sounds extra special. Let's go do this. And then I'd go walking in there, and it'd become pretty clear to me that the salesperson who, according to the wholesaler, had previously tried to sell this whiskey and failed, had a very close relationship with this decision maker. In some instances, they were talking about stuff that they had done together over the weekend. So these people know each other. It's not like this is the first meeting they've ever set up at this store. And then I would always start off my presentation because I don't want to spend a lot of time telling people things they already know. And so I don't want to tell them about the podcast and the following and the suicide prevention work that we do and all that stuff if they already know all those things. And so I would normally start off and just say, so what do you know about the Prideful Goat? And then inevitably they would go, oh, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. And then I'd tell them the basic facts about the Prideful Goat. And then they'd taste it and they go, oh, well, I'll bring in a case and we'll see how it goes. And what that taught me is that the wholesaler had been lying. It was not true that they tried to sell the whiskey and nobody wanted it. Even when we were walking into an account that my salesperson knew was critically important for me to have distribution in. When I walked in, they had been there before. They knew each other, but the person had never heard of my brand. So the wholesaler had in fact never tried to sell my whiskey in there before. Welcome back to Pretentious Whiskey Reviews. Today, we're evaluating the 1982 Pappy Van Winkle. Ooh. I'm detecting a hint of Bolivian virgin tears and East Indian, West Indian grasses.
Yo, you don't need all that crap. All you need is an American whiskey aroma kit from bourbonrealtalk.com. Developing your palate is a learned skill. Over time, you can train your taste buds without being a douchebag. Get yours today at bourbonrealtalk.com.
I'm also getting Indian nutmeg. And so it became pretty clear to me because I would go in and I would, do my dog and pony show and people would like the concept behind the brand and they'd like the whiskey and the pricing was acceptable and so they'd bring some in. But I wasn't really getting any reorders. They'd sell through the whiskey that they brought in, but they wouldn't reorder it. And it became clear to me that believing my own press was a mistake, right? They weren't. There was enough brand recognition that they could sell through the little bit that they brought in to run their test, but not so much demand that they're just going to keep ordering it the way that they would a high demand product like Tito's Vodka or Jack Daniel's or Jim Beam White Label, right? And it became pretty obvious that the path to success was going to take more investment of time than I had to offer, and probably more time than any one person could offer. Because to grow the brand, you needed to be in multiple states. And since the wholesalers weren't going to sell the product unless you were in market with them, you would have to be in all states at all times to maintain focus on the brand, which one person couldn't do. It also became pretty clear to me that the store owners are always being put under pressure by their wholesale reps. And so when the wholesale rep has a work with, which is what they call it whenever the producer is coming to work with them to find placements for the product, those accounts feel pressure to say yes because, the producer's there. But they might be coming in with another producer the next week or the week after that, and the store only has so much shelf space. And there's another nefarious practice in the industry where the wholesaler says, your product doesn't have a lot of demand and people aren't ordering it, but if you will pay a second time bonus to our salespeople for them to sell your product, and you allow them to make 2 commissions off of one sale, we'll actually give your product some attention. And in those instances, or in the instances where I spent money to fly there and ride around with them and do their sales job for them, even if the product sold at a reasonable rate, they wouldn't reorder it because they needed that shelf space for the next time that wholesale rep came in and said, I have a special product that I need you to pick up, either because I need to take advantage of this bonus, or because I need you to put something on your shelf because I asked this guy to fly here and he spent all this money and I don't want him to have failure, right? So by this time, I'd basically learned that the 3-tier system was set up to create failure for new entrants. The system, the money that flows to politicians that determine what the laws are going to be, all of that is all funded by the largest players in the market, the largest producers, the largest wholesalers. And the wholesalers basically have a monopoly where they can sign up small producers and promise them the sun and the moon and the stars, and they don't have to do any of it because nobody's actually doing the job that they're being paid for, and there's no one to go to who's going to do the job, and there's no way for you to do the job yourself because you're not allowed to go directly to the consumer in the market. And so that, plus there started to be a lot of evidence that there was going to be some difficulty in the whiskey business going forward and that it was going to face headwinds for potentially years. And so, I'm kind of looking at all of these things and realizing I'm only one man. I can't be everywhere at the same time, and I can't spend as much time in the market as I need to get the reorders after I get a point of distribution. And I had a clause in my agreement that had a bilateral plan for separation. So basically the distillery could ask me to leave at any time, or I could decide to leave at every time. And there was an equation that was going to allow me to sell my interest back to the distillery. And so given the difficulty that I was facing and the reality that I was never going to be able to commit as much time as I needed to make the brand grow, and the fact that I still have a family to take care of, and despite popular belief, this podcast doesn't make anywhere near enough money to take care of me and my family. And I was spending way too much time on the podcast and trying to grow the whiskey brand to actually engage in the behaviors that generate revenue to take care of me and mine. And when I started looking at the landscape, the future prospects, and I had to make a decision about letting something go, rather than shut down the podcast, which was going to shut down my fundraising opportunities, which was going to cause me to have to fire my, single mother, sister-in-law who works for the podcast full-time. It was going to cause me to have to fire Wes, who uses these funds for his ministry in the Dominican Republic. I chose to step away from the Prideful Goat. Now, let's talk about the future of the Prideful Goat. It is not going anywhere. We separated on good terms, and I'm still going to be doing everything that I can to help the Prideful Goat. So if you need something from TPG, you can still reach out to me, and I can get the right people involved. If you want to do barrel picks, if you know, anything like that, you can still reach out to me. If you're a wholesaler and you'd like to represent the Prideful Goat in the state, I can get you in contact with the right people. I'm still hopeful that I'll be able to do, you know, annual events at the Prideful Goat. I may still go down for some of their new product releases. I'm not mad. I just realized that I had to do some restructuring in my life, and I needed to put my time where it was going to have the largest impact. And because of the structure of the 4-tier system, and what was going to have to happen to overcome the barriers to entry that have been put in place by large corporate interest and corrupt government bureaucrats, I'd love to change the world, but I'm not going to dilute myself into believing I was going to be able to make those changes in a short period of time. So I had to do what was right for my family and get focused on other things. But I am very committed to you and this podcast and its mission and everything that it stands for. And so don't worry, this will be an ongoing opportunity for me to connect with you and the community, and we'll still be able to do great things. So let's talk about our free giveaway. So I thought it'd be appropriate for me to give away some of the offerings from the Prideful Goat. We're going to have 5 1-ounce sample winners. You're going to get a 6-year bourbon, an 8-year bourbon, my new 12-year Canadian finished rye whiskey, which is the only whiskey south of $50 at retail that is 12-year age stated, that is not on allocation in the United States. And it's pretty tasty. It's 100 proof. You're going to get a 8-year rye, a 9-year rye, and a 6-year rye. And all of these are from the same barrels. They're just different ages in Texas. So these will be pretty interesting to taste side by side. And all you have to do to enter to win is like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, fill out the web form, which is going to give us your basic information. We'll run a randomizer, pick the winner, get your address, ship your samples to you absolutely for free. If you like this content and you want to support this channel and its mission, there's 3 basic ways. You can do it through Patreon. Patreon's a great way to support. It is a monthly donation to this channel and its mission. Some people donate because they like the content, they want to support the content, but some people like the other missions that are being worked on behind the scenes because of the reach of this, like with Wes's ministry, like supporting Chrissy Lynn, like supporting Lindsay and I, because we do spend a lot of time that we could be spending on our regular jobs doing fundraiser efforts and working on suicide prevention and mental health. If you want to support that, Patreon's a great way. Merch is another way. We have great merchandise on the website, and because we have lasers, a lot of it is customizable, so you can get your name, your whiskey club, your business logo placed on a lot of our products. And the last way would be hiring me as your residential real estate agent in the Dallas or Houston metro area. You can find links for all 3 ways to support the channel in the video description below. And if this is your first time tuning into the channel, we just want to tell you why we do what we do. It's not just about whiskey and its flavor. It's more about community. I lost a loved one to suicide in 2014. And when I started talking with my brother's friends, I realized that we have connections in our everyday social life that are very important to support our mental health and also for us to get help whenever we are struggling. And my brother started to lose those connections. And I saw that people gathering together around a hobby like whiskey would help to form those connections very quickly. And so I thought, maybe if I got you connected to whiskey would do the rest of the job and get you connected to others. So we started the channel, but if you want connection, you do have to have a forum. And a lot of the forums out there were filled with negativity that are quite honestly counterproductive to connectivity. And that negativity is usually from trolls, people who are just being negative and showing hate to strangers online. And so we ended up creating our own community called Bourbon Real Talk Community that is a free Facebook-based whiskey enthusiast club. You can go join. It costs nothing. There's great things going on in there. We're currently one of the world's largest bourbon-focused Facebook groups. which we're very proud of, but is also troll-free. It's been so successful, we started Live Stay Project, which is a suicide prevention and intervention nonprofit, registered 501c3, and all that is administered inside the whiskey enthusiast world. But we did learn something else from those negative people and those other groups, the trolls we call them, and that is, if they can hate a stranger online, we can love a stranger online. And that's why we end every episode the same way, and that's this. If you woke up this morning and you're unsure whether or not anyone loved you, just know that I love you. And I'll see you next time on Bourbon Real Talk. Cheers.